to happen. And as many times as I had to go in and go back out, right, I just determined we're going to have this conversation. In fact, I said, if it meant you were going to call me and have me on audio while you are live, I was willing to do that. So let's never give up, ladies. There's always a way. You know, sometimes you get distracted by something that is looking like a setback. But here we are, we're having this conversation. And honestly, I'm so confident that because there was this much resistance, it's going to be great, even for you and I, Yabo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just shows that God's power is nowhere compared to what the devil will try to do in our lives. Nowhere. Once you have that faith with God, don't get distracted by what the enemy is trying to do. Just laugh it out. You saw how I was laughing and giggling. I'm like, me, you are enemy and devil. You don't know how stubborn and how resilient this child is. You're dealing with the wrong person. Because me, I don't give up. I don't. Audrey, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's wonderful to connect with you on this stage. We were classmates in QC, and every time I see something wonderful that you've achieved, I'm not surprised because I knew you in QC and I knew who you were and how brilliant you were. So there's nothing you're doing now that surprises me, because just a week ago I saw another accomplishment on LinkedIn. I'm like, Audrey is just trailblazing, and you're trailblazing with humility. That's one thing I love about you. You're trailblazing and not forgetting the women that need you. So, you know, you're putting out everything you can to help people. Every time I listen to a video on your Instagram feed, I get uplifted and I get encouraged. So, you know, I'm just up QC, because I'm so proud of everything you're doing. And I did give a short bio. Your bio was too long ago. Your bio, not too long, negative. But your bio was amazing. So you guys, if you want to know Audrey's accomplishments, follow her on Instagram, on LinkedIn. But Audrey, please say hello to, I'm sure many people on here already know you, but there may be a few people on my platform who are meeting you for the first time. So do you want to give them a few words?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Again, I want to say thank you for as many as, you know, just stood by us in the almost 15 minutes of back and forth. It's just such a wonderful, you know, time out today that we're going to have. I'm so confident about that. Why did I commit to today? Maybe I want to start with that. So like Yabo said, we went to QC together. And yet, I'm not sure, Yabo, that we've actually seen, maybe once at best in over 30 years. But there is something about sisterhood. There is something about recognizing that people coming to your path, you know, for a reason. And you open yourself then to be used of God in those relationships whenever the time is right, to speak to other people. And so that's why when she asked, I jumped at it to say yes, because you're equally doing some phenomenal things. My whole passion is to just deliver God's glory, whether it's in the marketplace or in any platform. Literally, that's what my life is about. So you see me, yes, there's a lot that God is helping me to do in business, in my industry, as a mentor, as an author, so many things. You know, God is just, you know, but there's a common thread, and that is that God has placed me as an encourager and as an apostle. And I'm very clear about that. So that's who I am, and it finds expression in different forms. So sometimes people ask me, how do you do all these things that you do? And I say to them, if you pay attention, there is a central theme to everything I'm doing, right? I'm using the gift of words that God has given me to express the gifts that I carry, and that gift is encouragement. So that's really who I am. And I feel that I don't want to leave this earth carrying any of that with me, because I don't need it in heaven. So let me anchor it there. Yeah, but I'm really glad to be here. Yeah.
That is wonderful. I love that last statement you just made. I don't want to leave those gifts here. I want to use them while I'm here, while I'm alive on earth, to encourage other people, because I don't need them in heaven. That was a powerful statement. Every woman needs to write that down. If you write that down, you'll stop procrastinating. You'll stop trying to be perfect. You'll stop giving up when things don't go your way. Because once you go on to the other side, you don't need those gifts. And while you're here, you're still not using those gifts. So think about it. You're not using them optimally here, and you don't need them in heaven. And God gave you those gifts to use. So you have to. Today, we are discussing career growth. Thank you, Audrey, for that wonderful introduction. We're discussing career growth, entrepreneurship, and how those two relate to fulfilling purpose. Okay, start asking your questions. I'm a multitasker. You have Audrey here for about 45 minutes to an hour. Ask your questions. I'll put them in as much as I can. But if we can't take all the questions, you guys know how to reach both of us. I answer every DM that I can. Audrey is quite good with answering. If we don't answer, our assistants will answer, but try and reach out to us in the DM or email or however. So Audrey, let's dive in. Okay. I want to ask you about you first, though. At what point, at what moment did you feel that you were starting to fulfill purpose? Because it comes to all of us at different times. You know, it doesn't come to some people until they're 60 years old, how to fulfill purpose. At what point did you start to feel you were fulfilling purpose?
Okay, excellent question. I would have loved to give a more robust answer that takes me right back to primary school. And if there's time, I will explain why it would go that far back. But let me bring it a bit closer into where at least I began to own myself. So this would have been about 2007 or 2006, thereabouts, when I had a bit of an epiphany. Because you see, I had kind of designed my life around, it was my husband, my children, myself. And, you know, imagine that I work with my husband, been working together for over 28 years. So it was a very small circle and I loved it. It worked. But I realized that my children had gotten to the point where nobody was asking mommy to make breakfast anymore. They were sorting themselves out, right? And so the things that made me feel, oh, I must be here, I'm so needed, I'm so, my own dependencies, which I thought actually were other people's dependencies, were being kind of, were maturing away from me. And I had to step back and ask myself, so what does this mean then for you? Like, who are you outside of the wife, the mother, the business person? Who are you, the person, and what is your life about? I've kind of always known, you know, I'm this person in secondary school, they call me the mother hen, school principal. So I'm always that kind of, you know, bring everybody together, let's make something work. But like I said, I took that and for many years wrapped that around my family, my business, my circle. Because also that I'm somebody who, I know it doesn't look that way these days, but I'm traditionally an introvert and shy. And so it was easy for me to stay in that circle. Yeah, like I don't want to step out. I don't want anybody to know me. This, my quiet life is working for me and all that. But I had to ask myself, and then, so what is why are you here? How can it be only this? If these things are taken away from you, what next? Are you going to show up in 40 years' time and suddenly start trying to reconnect with people that you abandoned because you had carved this niche out for you? How about people that need something that you carry? And then I remember I had a conversation with my husband and my children, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be stepping out a bit into things that matter to me, into networks that I feel that I can gain and add value to. And I was actually quite intentional about sitting down and thinking, okay, where do I want to go? I want to go to Wimbase. I want to join this Nigerian Gas Association. I want to do this. I want to do that. But beyond that is also that I looked at myself and I said, Audrey, what are you really about? You know, because I'd been asking God all the time, Lord, do more for me. I want more. Because there was this burning sense of dissatisfaction inside. And I remember the day God said to me, have you done the most you can with the much I've already given you? Wow, I mean, that was like, okay, so you've been whining. But God is saying, have you literally looked at what you already have and what are you doing with it? And of course, that then began to beg the question, so what do you have? It was quite simple for me. I know that I know how to talk. You can wake me up in my sleep, give me a topic, I'm going to say something intelligent by the grace of God. Yes. I know that I know how to counsel people. I can talk people through situations. I know that I like to write. I can create a story, you know, just in the air. I can write a nice, interesting article. And the central thing I then saw then were words, words, words. That God has given me words. What am I doing with them? So what I decided then, that was when I started to blog. All right. I remember the day I wrote my first post, my heart was beating. I mean, I was in my room and I was afraid, like, oh my God, would anybody read this? Does it even make sense? Oh my God, oh my God. Oh, everybody's blogging. You too, you want to blog. Well, guess what? I ended up blogging for over 12 years. And out of my blog, I have, 2 books and a third one on the way. It was the same words that made me now start my foundation. It was the same words that now had me going to conferences, and this time around determining I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to walk up to people and have a conversation, right? And so on and so forth. So literally, that was me now realizing that I was carrying things that were not just for me. Your words are not for you. You don't write just for you. You don't, if you're speaking just to yourself, there's some madness that is involved there as well. So I think that if I step back, it was that epiphany of there has to be more to my life than this thing I've carved out that seems to work. And the question God asked me as well, the answer came in understanding that, it took me back to dominion, because if we go back to the Bible, which is always the source, Genesis 1, and then the question from 26 to 28, what were we asked to do? We're asked to go, it's created an image and likeness, then go and have dominion, subdue. And then I was a big, huge Amplified Bible person. And I remember always that the Amplified Bible says to use all of the subdue, meant to use all of the vast resources of the earth to bless God and man. So that's the call on my life. That's the call on your life. So anything you identify as capacity within you, in my case then being words, I also needed to sit down with God and say, okay, Lord, how do I make this happen? And I think I should just end by saying this too, that it wasn't really about what is the big picture. All right, because I think sometimes when we're having these purpose conversations, we already have pictures of these great big people, the Audreys, the Dangotes, the whatever their name is. There's always some fantastic person. You're looking at them and thinking, oh, wow, they're doing so much in purpose. And we forget that we just need to take that one first step. So it was also coming to the place where I had to say, Audrey, if nobody reads this article, post it because you've written it. And post the next one and the next one and the next one. And you just never know how that will end up. All right. So long story short, I've gotten all sorts of incredible testimonies around my books. Every time I come out to speak, I'm very nervous. People don't believe that, but that is the truth. I'm anxious, but I remember something, that God tends to take over. And when he does that, it becomes a bigger blessing to someone else. So the purpose conversation was really about, come out of yourself, girl. Come out of yourself and let God be. And if he's going to make you shine in that process, don't worry about it. If we worry about what happens when we're on stage, I think it's because we're not really sure who we really are when we're not. So I hope that helps.
Audrey.
Sam.
Audrey.
Yes.
Ooh, just those, 10 minutes? I feel already full. I was writing so much, but I want to just quickly say the things that hit me. Women tend to be attached to their results. You said this in many ways, that how about not being so focused on the results and the big picture? Just do it. That reel you made a day ago that you feel like you don't look perfect in it, just post it. That blog you wrote that you feel is not perfect, publish it. Right? There's so much. This live is not about me, it's about you, but there's so much that in your story also resonates with my story. So many things. I also, as you were talking, communication was coming into my brain. The power of communication, words, the written word, the spoken word. And I was remembering my mom in heaven, because I always say that, I'd say that my mom didn't have any formal education, no school at all, but she was the most confident, the most poised woman, and she had the power of the spoken word. My mom was confident, she spoke well in her language. When she spoke, people would listen. And she soared with that. She couldn't write, but she soared with that. So, as you were talking, that you use your words to help people, you use your words to influence and to fulfill purpose, communication. What about people who are dumb and deaf and can't? There's still a way they can communicate. There are many people who are handicapped, but they are one of the some of the greatest people. So we have to communicate those gifts. Another thing that hit me was being an introvert. I've been reading studies over studies over studies that actually most of the successful people and most influential people in the world are actually introverts and not extroverts. And when people see what I'm doing till today, a lot of my friends who know me from primary, secondary school, they're still like, is this IYABO? Is this just another, is it a mutation? Is this IYABO that never wanted to talk? But if you're an introvert out there and you're looking at Audrey and I and you're hiding behind, I'm an introvert, I'm shy, so I don't want to show my face. Here's your lesson. I'm going to say the last lesson I got from here, the heart beating. Every single time, before I start a live, before I start speaking, my heart goes through some racing. This is why I always have my tea. My green tea, my decaf green tea, always, you see, it always calms me down. I sit down in this position, I take a few breaths, and then I'm like, God, take control. Your heart will beat. You will feel anxious, but do it anyway. There's a question that came up, so I'm going to ask you that, Audrey, which is related to what you said. And she also made a comment on here. She asked that, what's the role of an aligned partner in purpose fulfillment?
Okay, excellent question. But if you don't mind, I saw one question. The person asked, how do you deal with stage fright? Since we were talking about it.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if you saw that, since you just talked about
that one. Yeah. So take any ones you see that you want to take, you can take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are different things, right? For me, first and foremost is recognizing that there is nothing wrong with being wrong, right? So sometimes people are afraid to be on stage because they feel what they say won't be intelligent enough, or they don't, whatever, or they might answer a question wrongly and stuff like that. Nobody is trying to claim to be the bastion of all knowledge, but you gain confidence by stepping out afraid. So I believe firmly in the do it afraid principle, because I've learned that every single person is afraid. In your own zone, you are an expert, right? So in my industry, if you're discussing gas issues, I'm confident enough to step into the room. But even at that, I know that so many people know more than I do, and some people don't know as much as I do. But if I was to come into, I don't know, some other like pharmaceutical industry, and you invite me for a conference, I would probably be nervous because I don't know much about that industry. So everybody has their areas of expertise. And remember this, that everybody is afraid, no matter how we posture. There is some place where we're not that confident, and you build confidence by putting yourself forward time and again. Come out afraid. What's the worst that can happen? You make a mistake and you move past it. If you're not afraid to be wrong, to be laughed at, you will never, be able to get past that. Secondly, when you come into a stage, right, there are different tactics that can help you to manage stage fright. And you have to research that. They're as simple as, one of the earliest things I ever learned was look over the head of somebody in the middle of the hall, and it somehow looks like you're looking at everybody, right? Start with a joke. Start with something that relaxes you yourself. There's so many different things, and when you come to a speaking session in your authentic self, with your personal stories, you're not trying to prove any point, just to be you. Over time, and you know what, lastly, from a spiritual perspective, I have to say this. Actually, I don't think you should be trying to overcome stage fright. I have internalized stage fright to mean one thing, that this is about God and not me. Every time I come into a program too confident, something goes wrong. So I love the fact that I start, no matter how many years I've been doing this, that I start nervous, I'm uncertain, you're about to call my name and my heart is pounding as if I didn't know I was going to speak. I love that because it reminds me that, Holy Spirit, without you, I cannot do this. So let's not even try to lose the fright. Let's allow the Spirit to keep us humble and trust Him to do what He will do, but keep showing up. It takes practice, but over time, you master the art of channeling the nervousness into an excellent performance. Now, the second question you asked around an aligned partner, this is so critical. And I would say, unfortunately, In many cases, obviously I can't say most because nobody knows most, but in many cases we've gone into the relationships, we've not had the conversations, we've not shared our big, boldest dreams until suddenly that itch to be more and do more keeps us awake at night. For a woman, you need the alignment. For a man, the same thing. We're not trying to break homes in the name of fulfilling purpose. That's not God's desire. He wants everyone, every family to stay together, to be in love, in friendship, in fellowship as husband and wife, as father and mother. So literally, aligned partners, they give you the restedness that allows you to be more and do more. So I will share the example of my husband, for instance. One particular case I remember many years ago was my very, very first invitation to speak at an international event in Dubai. And when I saw the list of speakers, vice presidents, president, all sorts of people, I was like, hey, where did they come and find this small girl in Nigeria, right? And invite me. I was intimidated out of my wits. And I told him, I said, I'm not going. And my husband said, why? I said, oh, no. Can you see the people on the list? Blah, blah, blah. No. Why am I going to go and stay there? You know what my husband did? My husband went to my best friend's husband. Right? I hope you can still hear me. I'm seeing buffering. Okay? Can you still hear me?
You were gone for a couple seconds. You're back now.
Okay, sorry. So I was saying that when I was telling him that I was not keen on going because I was scared, he then went to my best friend's husband, asked him to release his wife, and he paid for both our tickets to go to UAE for 5 days.
Wow.
So when I walked into the room, I was no longer walking in that my shy self. I knew I had my girl got your back with me. And I delivered, dropped mic, and I came back to Nigeria. So imagine that I had that kind of partner. That has opened multiple opportunities. But he could also have been the one that said, hey, Dubai, they know he's going to cook food for me when you're not here. Just the conversation. So maybe the bigger question is, how do you gain this alignment? And I want to say this especially for women. But many times our partners say to us that it's not so much what we said as it is how we said it. You always have to try to situate your partner in your success. They have to see how it is their success as well. Because we hear too many stories about, the successful women who now treat their partners badly and all sorts of crazy things that are out there based on real things, right? So you have to be able to share this narrative. What are your partner's dreams? Are you listening to them as well? How are you championing them? And then in reverse, how are you able to champion or bring them to the place where they're championing yours? And this doesn't rule out the fact that there are many men who are threatened by a successful woman. But again, it's just a narrative. The truth is, I believe with all my heart that a man who has loved and nurtured his wife, right, all the way, he's been a good friend, a good husband, a good lover, everything. When she's successful, she does not disdain him. I believe most of those stories you hear are times when the woman was practically subjugated. And the minute she finds her voice, a whole lot of things change. Yeah, so alignment is key, whether you're a man or a woman, is critical. Yeah.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you. So many thoughts on that. As you know, I was married for 15 years with the same man for 23 years. So we dated for 8 years, married for 15, both doctors. So sometimes it's not even the husband, okay? And if my ex-husband is watching this, he'll know exactly. Sometimes I believe it's not even quite the ex-husband. Sometimes it's people around them. It could be their mother, their sister talking into their ears that, what? How can you let this woman go and don't you know that? Don't you know? That was my situation, okay? That was my situation.
Yes.
And it came to a point where it was a battle. I didn't want to fight because I knew that probably by him alone, he would have been okay with it. But there were too many ears talking into his ears and he believed those ears. And, how can you? And I'm asking, but you knew I was a doctor, when we got married. Did you think I was going to be a doctor and then not be a doctor? You knew how I was. I'm ambitious. I'm somebody who, so, this is a topic that we need another live on, right? Because like many people are commenting, that everybody's saying, God bless your husband. There are not many husbands like that. And, you know, I agree. But again, it's not even just about the husband. Again, you talked about your husband's best friend and your best friend. You also have people around you who think like you, right? Who are so on the same wavelength. So I want to let women just know that one thing, that it may not even be about your husband. It may be the other people talking into his ear that are telling him that how dare him let his wife do this, and how dare him. So it's a complex topic, right?
You're so right. I'll give one example quickly, but this is another life. So when I was the president of the Nigerian Gas Association, obviously I was always traveling. All right, I had to be in Abuja more times than, you know, I could say. And I remember that in one occasion, because usually my team and I would meet at the Transcorp Hilton. And then from there, okay, maybe we're going to Aso Rock, or we're going to, you know, the National Assembly, whatever. So this particular day, we met for breakfast. We all sat down together, and then it was time to leave. So we came out, and we had 3 cars. I was with my, then I was the vice president, actually, and I was with the president, who was male then, and my team. So we agreed that I would go with him, and then the others would fit into the 2 cars. As we're driving, about to get into the car, rather, a young man came to me and he was like, "Oh, hello, Ma, how are you?" And I looked at him. He was actually a friend of my stepson. So we greeted very nicely and all that. And, you know, said, "Oh, how are you? Okay, take care. See you soon." And I got into the car. I kid you not, IYABO. Maybe like 3 minutes. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So all of like 3 minutes later, my husband gets a call. My husband calls me, and my husband was laughing. And he said how he had they had just told him that they saw me with a man at Transcorp Hilton. If not that he knew exactly where I was, exactly who I was with, exactly why I was there. I mean, can you imagine that? You know, so it was just ridiculous. Even recognizing that I'm on a national assignment, I was still now, well, thankfully not having to, but for some women, they would have found themselves having to defend what didn't need to be defended.
I know.
You know, I mean, I just thought it was really amusing. But then again, it's the power of a confident man. I always say something that men don't realize, that if a woman really wanted to, he wouldn't even know what was happening.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Honestly. So anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah, right. And the same person who asked that question talked about trust issues, that, you know, how does she get the trust of her husband? And, you know, there's trust issues going on and all that. You know, my answer to that, really briefly, and I'm sure Audrey may have an answer, is you can't really, you know, influence the trust he has. That's something he's going to have to deal with. It's probably something in his past that has made him so untrust, you know, worthy of people, or, you know, not trusting people. All you can do as a wife is to support him as much as you can. Like Audrey said, be supportive of his ventures, be supportive of his dreams, his goals, be that supportive and loving wife. But as per trying to influence him to make him trust you, that's something he's going to have to work through. Number one. Number two, somebody also mentioned when I was talking about my ex-husband that, well, he's an adult, his responsibilities to his wife, which absolutely I agree with, right? But you know what? As much as we know that, sometimes the influence of a mother on their son's life is not like we would like. So this topic is very complex, but I wanted to mention 2 things, and then I want to go quickly into the stage fright thing. I just wanted to say this real quick, because a lot of women come to my DM asking about accent. A lot of them come and they say they love how I still speak in my normal Nigerian accent, that how could I have been gone from the country for so long and I still have my Nigerian accent, you know. And this is one thing I want to say to women: your accent is your trademark. Your accent is one of the most wonderful gifts that God gave you. Don't try to fake it. Even if you're talking to an American audience, the worst thing you can do is to try to talk American when your accent is not naturally American. Talk the way God created you. You know, we Nigerians, we actually speak really good English, even with some of us with thick accents. And Nigerians speak well. So whether you have an Igbo or Yoruba accent, speak normally. People love this. Look at Audrey. Audrey, with all of her achievements, she's talking normally. She's not trying to talk American or English. So this accent question that you guys keep asking, people love authenticity and people love people who are real. Please don't worry about your accents. Those who cannot hear you, it's their loss.
Yeah.
Right, Audrey? I don't know if people have asked, maybe because I live in America. That question comes to me.
No,
I'm like, how do you just talk normally without faking your accent? You know? I'm like, why should I fake my accent?
Yeah. No. So I think there's a place for refining your speaking, right? So you don't want to be dropping grammatical errors and stuff like that. You want to be crisp. You want to work your voice. You want to work your voice. And by that I mean, for instance, I know that I have a deep voice. I'm usually on the phone. If I call, I get people tell me yes sir, because they just assume it's a man. Yeah, but here's the beauty of it. And when I say work your voice, is that I have learned the craft of working the microphone so that your voice booms and everybody, once you start speaking, everybody just goes quiet and like, who is that? You know, so be comfortable with who you are. Even my children are all overseas, but as we're moving into Canada, schooling there and all that, we have a very basic rule. You can speak the phone as much as you like when you're dealing with others. But if I'm talking to you, let that Niger accent, don't you, especially on a serious matter, you come and be blowing phone for me? I don't think so. So, you know, it's part of who you are. It's authentic. You know, I say if anybody can pronounce Abrahamovich and all those crazy names, then they should be able to say Joe-Ezigbo as well. Exactly. So just be who you are, and because sometimes you're so bent on trying to speak the phone that you lose the authenticity and the connect that should be there. You're trying too hard to impress rather than just to deliver what you carry, and that doesn't. Yeah, so that's an excellent point.
And just practice. If you know, how are you? Audrey said, refine your voice, work your voice. How are you going to refine something you haven't even started using? You know, you have to start using your voice first. I had a public speaking coach that I paid a lot for in my 30s, 40s, and I have evolved and I have improved, but I had to start. She literally dragged me out that, okay, you've published your first book, you have to speak. You know, so I started speaking. So some of you are still hiding. You have to start, then refine as you go, which brings me to the next question, Audrey. Is purpose meant to keep evolving and changing, or is it just meant to stay the same?
Okay, excellent question. So I wrote an article many years ago and I titled it, Purpose is a Continuum. So there's nothing, in my view, like a static purpose. Even if you say your purpose is to do X, it's going to evolve over time. As you change, your own seasons change. As the audience, you're dealing with changes, and God just moves things around, even if the core is the same. And the core might be the same, but purpose to me is evolving. And one of the things I like to share on this conversation of purpose is this. So when you look at some of us today, and you're thinking, oh, wow, okay, this is a woman walking in purpose. There was a time when we had no clue. And I've shared that a bit. I remember, for instance, you know, as a teenager, I said, I'm going to start my own business. Something inspired me to do that. If you had mistakenly asked me, what would that business be doing? I could not have answered you for the life of me, even though I made a commitment that I would not work for anybody, and I stuck by it. But I couldn't have told you, oh, I'm going to start a business because I'm called to do oil and gas. What did I know about oil and gas? Right? So sometimes it's about that. What is the desire of your heart at that point, which is what God is actually laying on your heart. And sometimes too, I find that people get frustrated because they get stuck on the one thing. This is the thing I felt I was called to do and I've been doing it. And literally God has been telling you since that, oh, just hand it over, move on. Move on. I'm showing you something else. Let me give you an example. There was someone I was mentoring some years ago. And she said to me, she was in a bank, and she says to me that she's so unfulfilled, you know, that all she ever thinks about is designing clothes, but she can't imagine being a dressmaker, you know, and so on and so forth. And I said to her, you know what? You would never be satisfied with banking because there's a call on you to design, not to make the dresses. That's what you've never thought of, that the call on you is to design and sell designs to dressmakers. She literally stopped and looked at me and she was like, wow. Because you know what, she had been doing dressmaking as a side hustle, trying to create that purpose. And I said to her, no. So one is you have to let go of the banking. Of course, you don't just jump out. There is a practical way, unless you have a direct instruction from God. You manage that process. But then again, is to see that, you know, you're moving into something else, and you need to be bold enough to let go of what you think it should look like. And when the season is up, move away from it. I blogged for 12 years as Uniquely Woman, and I thank God for what he did. But you know what? The day God gave me the instruction, shut it down. Wow. I mean, I was like, no, Lord, what will I tell people? Like, oh, wow. But he just said, shut it down. He had given me a new assignment, a new title. He had given me the title almost 2 years before. And I just kept saying, what am I going to do with this? And finally, he said to me, this is what you're doing. And now you're speaking to both men and women. So one day, my last post, I put it out there. So guys, thank you for following diligently for 12 years. But this is the last post. I shared what the Lord laid on my heart. I shut it down. So we must be bold enough to allow God evolve us to the next thing. It's his agenda, not ours. Right? So purpose is not. For some people, it may look like one thing. Don't get fixated on them. Your journey is so different, so distinct. Just allow, you know, yieldedness is a word that this year is all, in every conversation, practically, God brings this back to me, yieldedness. How yielded are you to the workings of the Spirit? Whose agenda are you running? Purpose is God's agenda. That's all. And his agenda is not going to be stuck to what you think it should be throughout your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. So purpose does evolve. Now, this is my question, Audrey. How did you know that that was God speaking to you? How did you know?
So thank you. Yeah, thank you. You mean the day he asked me the question?
I said the day he asked you to shut down your blog.
No, because I've cultivated my relationship with God, right? I remember that, you know, as I got more, of course, we're talking decades now, as I began to get deeper in my relationship with God, one of the things that I think the devil used to try to hold me down was that concept of hearing from God. You know, when you're hearing people say, God told me, God said, you're like, just arrange yourself because you can't say that. But I wanted to. I remember telling God, I said, you know, I went and registered for a Bible school because I wanted to know how people would take, my pastor then, late Pastor Esther, phenomenal man, Pastor Esther would take one verse in an entire chapter in the beginning. And for 3 weeks, he's still preaching about in the beginning. He has not even gone to the rest of the verse. And I kept wondering, how do people get this kind of revelation? And so I went to try to do Bible school, and all I was hearing is, oh, pass your test so you can become a pastor. And I said, no, this is not about that. So I dropped out. And I sat down one morning, I said, Lord, I want you to teach me how to hear from you by myself. There was no magic formula. Maybe this doesn't happen to other people, but this is my story because that's what happened. But literally, the Lord started to show me. I even remember exactly, it was the scripture where Jesus came and he saw James and John, the sons of Zebedee. They were with their father mending their nets. And the Holy Spirit, I heard it. Why are they mending their nets? What is the symbolism of a net that needs mending? And things began to drop in my spirit. And I said to myself, just start to write them down. What's the worst that will happen is that you're talking to yourself, Abby. So that was how I started. And then God would say things to me, just maybe one sentence somewhere, I'll write it down, like, where did this come from? And I would see it somewhere else. I would see it in a book. I would hear it on the radio. And I began to recognize that these were God's signs. These were not coincidences. And I began to get comfortable with the idea that this is God. And the more I yielded to that, the more I would sit down and he would say things to me. And those things come to pass. I grew to know I operate in the prophetic. Guess what? Do you know that even from when I was in university, if I laughed and said to someone, when I was doing my degree, I would say to someone, this time next year, you would have had a baby. Silly things like that. I remember one of our classmates who thought she was done with children. And I laughed and I said to her, well, another one is coming and it's a boy. And it happened. I didn't realize then it was just something I did. But I've matured to understand that there's a prophetic call on my life. I'm comfortable with the voice of God. And apart from that, God has also told me in one of these many, many intimate sessions with him, Audrey, I will redirect your arrows. And why is that important? I like to share this because sometimes we think we heard God's voice. But later on, he will come and tell you, that was not me. You were moving with the desire of your heart. There is a place for acknowledging that I'm wrong. I'm not perfect. I'm not Jesus. So I can also come back and say, Lord, I thought this was you, and I'm sorry. So what do you want me to do now? So when we do make those mistakes, we also hear him, and he redirects that. I mean, our mistakes can never invalidate his plans, right? So I'm saying this because I know when God speaks. I sit down, I do my Bible study, or I'm praying, or just whenever. Sometimes he tells me, Audrey, I'm going to be speaking to you on the go, so stay sensitive. And in the middle of nowhere, something drops in my spirit, I write it down. Ultimately, I get to see it. So the minute he said to me, shut it down, I knew. And guess what? I sat down and reflected a bit and realized that in the last 3 years while I was blogging as Uniquely Woman, I had found out that I had a lot of men reading Uniquely Woman. And I remembered that about 3 of them actually wrote to me and said, please, can you stop using the word sis in your posts? That your posts minister to me, but every time I see sis, I feel excluded. And I remember that one of them was the CEO of a very large oil and gas company. And the day he sent me that message, I was like, oh, wow, okay. So in confirming that this was God's voice, I remember the Holy Spirit just started to remind me about these things, that you've always had men reading, but I'm taking you somewhere else. Besides, I gave you that it's called marked for distinction. He gave me this name. I've written it down for so long, but I didn't know what to do with it. So when he said to me, it's time, and this is the new assignment, it all came together. We must get to the point where we seek that intimacy with God enough so that we can trust his word, trust his voice, and trust that when we're not even sure, if we make a mistake, he's big enough to redirect it and revalidate it, you know, because his plans will hold whether we were right or wrong. We're too small to, you know, take God's plans out of alignment. No, we can take our lives out of alignment, but his plans will always stand. Yeah.
Beautiful story, Audrey, beautiful story. And you know what I love most about it? Not once did you say, my pastor told me. not that there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But I'm just saying.
No, I missed what you said. Huh? Not once did I say what?
Not once did I say. Not once did you say that it was your pastor that told you something, and that's how you knew you were meant to do it. I love my pastor. I attend Buckhead Church. My pastor, Andy Stanley. I've shared so many things that
I love him. Yeah.
I love Andy. That my marriage today to the man I'm married to, I believe that Andy's message to me had a strong, had a strong role in it. But I want women to understand that you should have a personal relationship with God as well, and not be so dependent on your pastor or your priest. Okay? I have grown that spirituality muscle myself. I know when God talks to me, those repetitive signs you talked about, oh, I see them everywhere. God gives me signs, especially about my kids. There's so many stories I can say here. So many times, there was a time I was at a book conference. I wanted to publish my book, and I was at this book conference, front row listening. And I remember that I had dropped my daughter off at a basketball game, and I just had a flash. I literally saw a flash of her fall during that basketball game. And I just thought, okay, she will be fine. And Audrey, not quite 2 seconds after that, my text went off. And one of the moms, her best friend's mom, said, I know you're at the book conference. Don't be scared. Don't be worried. Moni just fell. She just sprained her ankle. She will be fine. You know, but so many stories like that. If it doesn't come as a flash when I'm taking a walk outside, it comes in a dream, it comes in the shower. But this is because I asked
in the
God.
shower, always in the shower.
Shower.
Oh my God.
Do you know how many books I've written in the shower?
Oh my God.
Audrey, do you know how many reels I've created in the shower?
I know. There's something about, guess what? Yeah, but I've actually heard a couple of people say this. And for me, God speaks to me in the shower. And I've heard people say this. You just have to pay attention. Like sometimes it's like, it's just a strange, like, okay, Lord, why are we always talking in this place?
Do you know that when I was writing my first book, it got so heavy that I had to have on the floor outside my shower, I had a notepad and a pen there. Because literally the sentences that he wanted me to have in my book would come to me in the shower. So I left the book outside because I didn't want water to get onto my phone. Reels have come to me in the shower, captions, you know, so, and this is another thing, quiet time. This is another topic for another day. Quiet time is important. And then, ladies, write this down. Donnie McClurkin's song, Speak to My Heart. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Every time I hum that song, I get some kind of message. I can't sing, but I sing. Speak to my heart, Lord. The lyrics in that song are powerful. I hum it. So I just love what you talked about, because not once did you say, my pastor gave me a message, or I asked my pastor what I should do. You have built your own relationship with God.
Well, yes, but I would like to also say, because I'm also a pastor, right? There is a
I didn't
place
know that.
for that.
So Audrey, are you a pastor? I didn't
Yes,
know.
ma'am. So there is a place for that, right? And sometimes, because it's a function of maturity, and God can speak through anyone. So we get the word, we get revelations through, you know, in an entire church with one message being preached to 2,000, 5,000 people, you can get what is specifically for you. So there is a place for that. I have had many people, you know, come back to me to say, look, this thing you asked me to do, or this thing you ministered, here's the result. In fact, recently, somebody shared a powerful testimony with me. I had even forgotten about how I ministered to her some years ago in Benin, you know, and she shared the outcome of that. So these things do happen. However, the Bible also tells us we by ourselves, right? We are all, God doesn't speak only to pastors or priests or reverend or bishops. No. So each of us must be hungry. You know, we hear this thing said that there's a God-sized hole in you. Each of us is image and likeness. Each of us carries his breath. Each of us is what I call a unique piece of God's puzzle. So each of us have an assignment, and you must come to the place where you know your maker. So anything external will only serve to, you know, God confirms his word, right? But you can't just go, everything is, oh, my pastor said, my pastor said. What has God said to you? Even me personally, you know, sometimes a corporate fast may be called, and the Spirit says to me, this is not for you. I have learned to be obedient, right? Even if it is a fundraising, and, you know, sometimes those who have that gift, you know, people say, oh, there are 20 people here that the Lord, and you see 300 people come out. Why? It's because you've not matured to where the Holy Spirit can tell you, Audrey, you are one of those people. But funny enough, for me, if I walk, as I'm walking into a service or a program where I'm going to give, it's almost like as I walk in, the Spirit drops a figure in my heart. And no matter how scary that figure is, I'm going to put it, write a check, drop the cash, whatever. You have to mature to where you are hearing God for yourself, by yourself, because human beings are flawed. A pastor is at best a man also, right? Prone to their own errors. So whatever your pastor says, it's not for you to discard it, but take it back to God and ask God to, you know, confirm this word. Especially in the world we're in today, this is the time, we're in the end time. So this is the era of false prophets. This is the era of men of God, women of God that come with personal agendas. Because, look, there is a dark side to all this as well. And it's not written on the forehead. Test the spirit. And you can't test the spirit if you don't know the spirit, the capital S spirit, who can then speak the truth to either confirm what your pastor, man, woman of God has said, or give you a totally different instruction. And here's the thing, when you get a different instruction from God and you are sure it is God, please be bold enough to tell us, pastor, bishop, priest, God bless you for your interest in me, but God says this to me. Yes. Right? And I mean, we're not trying to please men. Your pastor may not be happy. Sometimes it's almost like, are you not trusting what I'm saying? But if your pastor is also 100% under authority and wanting to be sure they are not in error, I think the pastor should also say to you, as long as you've heard from God, I'll just pray for you in alignment with what it is you believe God is trying to do for you. I just wanted to say that so that we don't dump all of us into the same basket of our pastor. It's not like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I also want to add this practical thing to women. You know, being close to God doesn't mean that you neglect the rest of your life. Okay, there's something, you know, things can be overdone in life. You don't need to pray 24 hours a day. You don't need to stay up awake every night and only sleep 3 hours because you're talking to God. You have fun with your life. If you say one sentence to God all through the day and you say it with conviction and with faith, Jesus, help me. I need your help. And you go on with your day and you believe he's heard you and he's going to help you. It is done. There are many women that go the extreme and then they get sick. I know many women, somebody really close to me, I don't want to say it out here, you know, praying, staying up all night, not sleeping 24/7. You know, this is me being practical because, you know, that means, do you really trust that God has heard you? It's like when your kids say, Mom, it's enough, I've heard. You don't have to say it 5 times. I heard you. I believe it's the same thing with God. Believe, say a prayer, take a walk. Then when it's nighttime, sleep and let your heart rest and believe that God has heard you. But crying all night, staying awake all night because you just want to keep telling God, hear me, is that faith? Audrey, I don't know what you have to say to that, because many women say that you don't have to spend all your living days in church for God to hear you.
Yeah. No. I actually believe that, you know, you mature to where you know, your prayer is a conversation with God, right? That's really what it is. And so it's good to give God the early part of your day, especially if you're a morning person, because it just kind of sets the tone, right? But you should be talking to God throughout the day. And that's the way that I choose to operate. Like I'm, you know, sometimes you just burst out in worship, something happens, you pause and acknowledge him, Father, thank you for this, or a concern crosses your mind and you say, okay, Lord, please help me with that. But there is a place for, what would be the word now? Fervent prayers. I mean, the Bible also talks about that. But that fervency can't be at the detriment of your health, especially women, because you can create something else entirely. Right? And God is not going to be impressed by your spiritual acrobatics. You know, he knows this is our end from the beginning, God. So you don't want to fall sick. Falling sick is you showing man how much of a prayer warrior you are, in my view. Right? So you just need to, you know, you can decide for yourself, okay, the next 7 days, next 2 weeks, whatever, I'm going to have this midnight prayers. I mean, for instance, Nathaniel Bassey's Hallelujah challenge, absolutely fabulous. It's a spiritual exercise, it's a discipline, but that discipline is more for you than it is for God, right? So yeah, it's more for us so that we keep our spiritual antennas, you know, on high alert all the time, because we're wrestling with not with flesh and blood. A lot of things are happening beyond what our eyes can see. So you don't want to be casual, but you don't want to make like it is your, you know, like I said, acrobatics, that you're trying to impress God with your diligence. It's not like that. And try to be sure that you know, sometimes I think You know, you decide, for instance, I'm going to fast 21 days, no food, no water. Where did the instruction come from? Is it your personal decision? Or is it something that you've agreed with the Spirit? Because if you agree with the Spirit, if it's His instruction, He will sustain you. If not, by day 4, you'll be seeing demons. You know, and that's another conversation entirely. But I just think that we should engage God as a father. If we really engage God as a father, it changes the dynamics of the relationship. It really, really does. And when you understand that He sees you as His child, you know, so sometimes I call God my personal treasure. That's what I call Him, right? And then He calls me my smile daughter, because He tells me all the time, you make me smile, you know, and I love that.
Yes.
You know, sometimes God tells me, Audrey, you know, you're a very naughty girl, and I laugh. And these are things that the conversation with God, it's not this, he's my dad. He's mindful of me.
Yes.
You know, the way He would chastise me when I'm not getting things right, which He does, is the same way He can love on me. And His love on me, we have our own love language. So in that relationship space, you find you're always talking with Him. So that it's not as if I didn't particularly kneel down today and do like this, then I didn't pray to God. No.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have built this spiritual sensitivity, so for me, for instance, and I'm not saying this is a magic formula, but I found that when I'm at my on alert, I wake up with worship I wake up with a worship song playing in my head.
Yes.
That's what happens with me.
Me too. Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's it. So I just roll onto my knees, and this is the song I'm singing from my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But every time it slows down, I promise you, first of all, I'm going to be having like nightmares, all those kind of funny, vivid dreams where you're not sure, was I awake or was I not?
Yeah.
One strange thing will happen, and then I will know that, oh girl, it's like you've become a bit too laid back. So step up a bit.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that we said that, because again, we're giving out practical tips for women, right? So I'm going to join together one question that somebody asked with mine. So somebody asked that, should one set out to profit from one's purpose? That was her question. And then my question was, if women are fulfilling purpose, can they get burnt out from fulfilling purpose? Or once you're fulfilling purpose, you can never get burnt out?
No. Let nobody sell anybody that lie. So let me take yours first, right?
Yes.
It is very, very possible to be burnt out, because when you get into the place of fulfilling purpose, there is a wholeness, a sense of satisfaction that comes with seeing results, with seeing how lives are being touched. But you know, especially as women, because we are nurturers, we want to save the world. And so many times, even in the place of purpose, we feel like I need to do more. I have this one, that one, that one. The best thing you can do for yourself to be most effective at fulfilling your purpose in a sustainable manner is to give yourself the gift of no, as they say. Learn to say no.
Yep.
Right? Learn to say, sorry, I'm just trying to plug in my charger. Yeah, excellent. Right? Give yourself that gift and laxitude, because you will get burnt out. And when you get burnt out, what happens is you get resentful.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing that's supposed to be giving you joy, you now feel like it's a drag. Oh, everybody's always pulling at me. Yeah, but you were the one saying yes, and pushing, right? So make sure that you rest. That injunction to rest is always, God has not changed it. In fact, I was listening to I think it was Pastor Darius Daniels. He was talking about something, and he said that, do we realize that, you know, God created man on the day 6, right? And so the first thing God modeled for man was rest. Like, God had done all the work, then He created us. Then the first thing we saw happen the next day was that God was like, chill time. And that means that actually God was trying to show us that that is more important than all the hustle. If God had created us first and we now have to watch Him, sun and moon, earth and land and sea, flowers and fish, work, then we would have thought work is our everything. But God says, no, it is rest. because rest is the place where you have communion with me. When you're walking your purpose well, please be very intentional about detaching and resting.
Yes.
Be very intentional about, you can say 10,000 no yeses, right? But make sure there is a day or two in any one period where you say intentional no's. And that's not because I have anything else doing. What I call them my do absolutely nothing days.
Absolutely.
Schedule nothingness,
I
schedule
have
rest.
many of those.
Okay. I'm telling you, with no apologies or no apologies, whether you call it Netflix and chill or whatever, just make calls all day, go to the spa, whatever. Do absolutely nothing connected with the things that take from you. Can you profit from your purpose? Oh, sure. Oh, sure. That's not a problem. However, don't buy the narrative that every purpose leads to profits. That's not true. That's actually not true. You know, is that, oh, if you love what you do, you never work another day. Yeah, well, maybe in some cases, but it's not like that. Many times you have to be doing the work that generates the revenue that sustains your purpose, right? So, but if you do profit from your purpose, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Why? Because profit allows you to impact more.
Yeah.
So if you don't miss the assignment on your life, okay, God is not giving you wealth to have more Gucci bags and more whatever car appeals to you, whatever, or just travel first class every 3 weeks, because that's not what the wealth is for. God is literally looking for people he can give wealth, because he said the poor will always be with us. Somebody needs to be looking after the poor. Somebody needs to be looking at the areas of society that are breaking down and channel resources towards them. So why can't that be you? And if you're now doing it out of something that you feel is your purpose, spirit-led, this is my assignment, what's wrong with that? So I think that, you know, sometimes we think once you're talking purpose, then we must be NGO, non-profits. No, that is another calling in itself. Me, I'm very, very for profit. I am so for profit because I also do so much pro bono. And the reason I can be such a huge blessing to people is because I'm sure where my money is coming from. So I don't have to count like, oh, this will cost me this. No, I can just bless people I don't even know. And that's really what the assignment is, to be a blessing. The word of God tells us that nations will bless themselves because you existed.
Yes.
So it's not just that you're blessed to be a blessing. It literally says that there are nations. And to me, I interpret that to mean that you would be such a force for influence for good that even people that don't know you, right, will be, you know, when somebody is saying, oh, thank God for IYABO, effectively they're saying thank God for IYABO's mom. Because it is the seed she sowed that has carried forth, and so on and so forth. And in some cases, they may even be able to trace it back. In my husband's family, for instance, my late mother-in-law, who unfortunately I never had the privilege of meeting, is a woman who gathered the family. My husband was her only child. So she went and married a wife for her husband to have another set of 6 children. But she also then gathered all the cousins, you know, her husband's siblings whose marriages did not work. She gathered their children and she made them all, like they grew up calling themselves brother, sister, and she was the mom to everyone. She was such a force that till today, this woman has been dead for God knows how many decades. But till today, all of them keep talking about her like, you know, who would we have been if not for Mama? Can you imagine that?
That's legacy. Legacy building.
That's legacy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she died young. She died at 42. So it's not even like she lived to be, you know, 90 something. But in her time, she was so impactful that when we gather in the village, nobody is saying this is my first cousin. It's one family. Literally, they would eat together from the same place and stuff like that, right? So that's what it means, that you're such a blessing that more people than you can reasonably imagine. So if you are walking in purpose, please feel free. If God places a profit on it, but be clear that the profit is not for you to start living, you know, yeah, there's nothing wrong with luxury, but you must be looking at how much am I investing in others? Or is this all about me? Because if it's all about you, God can also readily strip it quite easily, quite frankly.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely. Do you have 10 more minutes? I want to be respectful of your time.
It is, yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Somebody asked this, can the next thing be, you were talking about the next thing, you know, a while back, and the person asked, can the next thing be to take another degree even when you already have a degree?
So this person who is asking that question, right? I have 3 MBAs. So you're asking the wrong person. And quite frankly, right now I'm researching where to do my doctorate, right?
I think that person is asking
is,
because she hears me talk about stop accumulating degrees to adorn your wall that you're not doing anything
yes,
with.
exactly. So I wanted to now go back to explain why I even have them, right? So I have my first master's degree because, you know, my father was trying to get me to do medicine. I did not want to do medicine, so I didn't get in for medicine. I got in for microbiology. And even though I made A's in the 2 courses I needed to take to transfer to medicine, I didn't file those results until it was too late. What that meant, I just wanted to do business, right? But he said, you know, right from when you were small, you said you always wanted to be a doctor. And I'm like, well, Daddy, but I only knew lawyers and doctors then. And I like the white lab coats and stethoscope. But I've figured who I am, and I want to do business. So immediately I finished my first degree in microbiology. I went back and I did a PGD in banking and finance, and then did an MBA in finance, right? So that was me taking myself back to what I would have done if I had the option at the beginning. But I also then started to run my own business. Now, at some point, we had grown to where we had a full marketing department I was in charge of. And I had 4 people that spent 4 years studying marketing. And I thought to myself, how do you team lead people? It's not like today where we have all these courses, we have all these platforms where you could have learned. I just felt that I needed to be more effective. So I went and did another MBA with a marketing bias, just so I could garner the team and channel, you know, all those talents properly. Now, my last MBA, which I did in Lagos Business School in 2007, 2008, was because so I had gotten venture capital investors into my business. We were doing a really large gas project, like the business trajectory had simply taken off. And I had to step back and say to myself, girl, those skills that you from your 2018, from first of all 1993 and then 2000 MBAs, and that was all theoretical. Can you really use that to move your business into the next phase of growth? Right? We hired some very competent managers. Can you demand of these people that level of professionalism and competence? Do you even have it yourself? Mm-hmm. And so as a business owner, I challenged myself to go back. Mm-hmm. And I went to LBS because of the case study methodology, and also it was a totally business related decision, and for me to build capacity. I don't believe in just doing Oga and Madam. You have to be upskilling as well. Oh, yeah. So right now I'm trying to get in to register for my doctorate, because for no other reason than, well, there are 2 reasons. One is that it was a dream I had. I said I wanted to have a PhD by the time I was 30. Of course, life went a different direction, which is fine. But I want to do it now because when I step out of my business, I want to spend the rest of my years doing a couple of things. One is ministry full-time, so to speak. 2 is continue with my coaching and all these other things I'm doing. But 3 is that I want to take all my decades of experience in business and teach in different business schools. So I need that, you know, well, it's not like it's a must, but I think it would be a nice add-on. You know, so it's Dr. IYABO talking to Dr. Audrey, you know. There's a little shaka factor in there as well, right? Shakara is but for this person who is asking, don't pile on degrees for degrees' sake. Because the world we're in today is not even interested in those things. They're looking at your certifications and experiences. Do you know that there are some large corporates now across the world who are not even interested in whether you went to university? Many. They just want the skills. Many. They want the skills, they want the attitude, they want the aptitude. Many. So you're becoming with all this, in fact, all this hoopla about the top business school, the top universities. My dear, yours truly. I went to University of Nigeria. I went to Nnamdi Azikiwe University. I went to LBS. I went to Queen's College. I never schooled abroad. But I'm hiring people that schooled abroad. Life is not like that. So lose all those things. Just do what works for you and understand if you want to do another degree, why? Why? What is it connected to? If it's to have the many, many letters across your name, I tell you what, if you just press into what God wants you to do, those degrees, they'll be giving you honorary, left, right, and center, and then you can be adding all those things if it's important to you.
And Audrey,
yeah, so I hope that helps.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but the difference with you is that as you were getting those degrees, you were using them for good.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. The reason for getting them, there was a reason for them.
Yeah.
Right? The reason I went for that. I didn't wake up and say I'm going to do 3 MBAs. I never had that plan.
Yeah.
But there was a reason, and the reason was such that as I learned, I was able to apply.
You were applying, you were implementing, you were using them as you were going on. Some people,
exactly.
And I don't want to say some, a lot of the women, because I get them in my DM asking me this question, should I? Then I throw the question back at them that the ones you already have, what are you using them for? How are you using those to already impact lives? And the answers I get let me know that they still feel inadequate. Because they're still not quite using those degrees. They feel inadequate. They feel one more MBA or that PhD will give them the confidence Dr. IYABO has, or it will give them, and I'm like, you know, they're just going to adorn your wall. Okay, they're just going to adorn if you don't step out and take action. So you were taking action. So people, you can listen to what Audrey is saying and say, okay, but Audrey has all these MBA and I will, but it's different. If you really pay close attention, Audrey has been a doer for a long time. I told you the story. Audrey and I met in secondary school from what, age 11? How old were we, 10 or 11? So 11 to about 16. And Audrey was already a leader in school. She was already a doer. Okay, she was already excelling in no, it's true, already excelling in school. And all her life, you've heard her glimpses of her story. She's been doing, she's been stepping out to take action. Many of you think that those 10 degrees will help you do. Actually, the more degrees you get, the more unsure of yourself you're going to become. Yeah. If you are not using, if you're not implementing and taking action. If you're implementing and taking action, you can keep on getting set. For me, I read books. My own is, I have my things set up on books here. My own is, I'm a reader. Read, business books, spiritual books, fiction. I read. I just want to read and soak up knowledge. But I'm tired of degrees. I don't want any more degree.
No.
Do you know what I want a degree in, Audrey? Let's laugh a bit. I want a degree in traveling. My own degree. If there's a certificate that they want to give now for my husband has visited 69 countries. I want to catch up with him.
Oh, wow.
Neil has gone to 69 countries, and I feel like every time I travel to a new place, I just get full of knowledge and full of experiences. So the degree I'm looking for now is world traveling. I don't want to read any academic book anymore. In fact, all this CME that they still keep saying we should take in medicine, I'm tired. Every few years, exam. I already know this pediatrics. Why do I have to read that to take any? Ask me any question in pediatrics. Give me a pediatric patient. I will treat them for you. In fact, I don't.
I get that.
You can go and take your PhD. I'm here cheering you on. I don't want any more book. I want PhD in traveling.
Nice one.
Please, for me now it's enjoyment, mama. But you know, last question, then we're out of here. I have to ask this question. There's no way I won't, because today we're talking about career, entrepreneurship, and fulfilling purpose. Entrepreneurship versus employed. What are your thoughts on these choices for women?
I don't think it's a matter of choice. Again, this is about your own personal journey. So one of the things that bothered me, I hear less and less of that in the last couple of years, I guess, with all the COVID thing, but Before then, there was this whole, oh, everybody, entrepreneur. We're not all called to be entrepreneurs, at least not at the same time. And we should not demonize people that choose to go through their life in corporate, right? There's not, if I don't have people working for me, how could I have run my business for 28 years plus? You need people staying with you. And you need the loyalty, you need, you know, so it's not like it's a case of, oh, should I be an entrepreneur? If you can't run a business, you can't run a business. Some of us, we just, it's almost like an innate thing. We jumped into it and we learned on the way. But some of us, I know that if I had to work, I always said something that if I had to work, I would have been a phenomenal employee at any level, right? Because I served even within my own organization. It's not a choice of either or. What is the call on your life? If you feel that you're led to start a business, then by all means do so. But I repeat, you don't just jump. You allow yourself process what is required. When do I have residual income? I mean, there's so many things. I think I've actually done some video or the other related to this, even though I was talking more around the context of leaving your job and joining your spouse, right? But if you're also in paid employment and you are comfortable, please don't let anyone bully you into thinking, oh, you must start a business, you must start a business. However, because we're not children, at least if everybody on this call, like we are, if you've crossed the 50-mile marker, or quite frankly, if you've hit 40, then I'll ask you to start thinking about your what next. And this is because anything can happen. You can lose the job, right? And what happens? And because we're getting older, it's really not that easy to get new jobs. Could it be that business might be the way to go? But does it mean you must start the business? Or do you want to partner with someone who has already started? Do you know that I have a friend who, when she retired, she said, Audrey, I have no plans to work. I'm going into professional independent directorships. Mm-hmm. She's sitting on God knows how many boards, local and international. And that's what she occupies herself, and she earns from that. So she's hopping from one state to the other, one country to the other in board meetings of companies in different industries. She took her position, that's all she's doing. And she can do that until she's 80, 90, if that's what she wants. Right. Some other person you want to leave and start a business. Business is not easy. Make sure you do your homework. Find a business mentor. Don't, you know, so it's not either or, right? But I feel that everybody should be true to their own journey. Don't buy into other people's agendas for your life. What is the Holy Spirit processing within you? If it is business, go ahead. If it is something else, go ahead. Right? And whichever one you anchor in, stay there, stay firm, stay confident. Stay there, stay firm, stay confident. Let the Holy Spirit journey with you. Before you exit either way, because even for those of us as business people, exits are possible. Yes. Your business could be bought over. I'm trying to sell my business. Yes. At least some chunk of it, right? Yes. And so it could be that maybe a couple of years or 5 years down the line, I exit the business. Yeah. Right? So you exit into the next thing. And I'm not going to wait until the last minute. Yes. So now start asking, oh, what should I do? Right. So it's about purpose and preparation. You know, so yeah, I just feel that everybody should embrace your own journey. Exactly. If you find yourself taking the bold step to begin to do some of the things that are crying in your hearts to do, which are the purpose, those are the purpose conversations. And it can be as simple as, oh, I want to start a soup kitchen, make packs of food for 50 people every Sunday. And what it could be, you know, God takes the small things and amplifies them into something else. Start doing that and just trust him with the rest. But trusting God with the rest also presupposes that that intimacy is there, because otherwise you're just being casual. Right. Trusting God with the rest is trusting that in the place of intimacy, you'll be hearing him and he's unfolding this thing, he's unpacking it to you one step at a time. And before you know it, you've made a shift into whatever you are designed for the rest of your life. I'm going to end by saying this, women especially, please be intentional about this conversation about your partnership with the Holy Spirit and listening to what he's saying and receiving boldness. Boldness doesn't mean you're not afraid. Boldness is you trusting that God said this, let me do it. Because if we don't end up in a place where we're working in purpose, that success into significance conversation, we get bitter in the end. Yes. Because as women, we've been battered in so many ways on the journey. and then we find ourselves bitter. You see sometimes older women, the minute there are young girls around them, they get nasty. See what they're wearing, these ones. Honestly, I think when that happens, I feel that they are faced with expressions of all they ever wish they could be.
Yeah.
And when they know it's too late, it's bitterness and regret. May we not come to our winter years in bitterness and regret.
Amen.
This is the time, the season to press in to the very best version of you. Find the right relationships and get into the God relationship like never before. Your life will move in a phenomenal direction, I promise you. And you go to bed every night knowing that, yes, Lord, even if you take me today, I can say that I've done well.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The entrepreneurship talk. And you also have to remember, thank you, Audrey, so much. But I always, when something comes to my mind, I always want to say it quickly before I forget. And the entrepreneurship story, you also have to, before you start wanting to be an entrepreneur like other people, you may see my life, you may see Audrey's life, and you're like, oh, would love to do what they're doing. But take some time to learn about their story and see if you're willing to go through that journey, right? My entrepreneurship story started from my mother's womb, I believe, because my mom was an entrepreneur all her life. My dad was an entrepreneur. So that's all I knew. You know, that's all I knew growing up. And I loved it because both of them spent a lot of time at home. I just loved that they were able to make money, spend time with us. But that's all I knew. Your story could be that you were born into a family of civil servants and a family of people who were in the corporate world. And that's all you knew. And it may take you then a longer time to evolve into entrepreneurship because that's all you knew. Some people start their businesses at age 60. Some start at age 50. Don't put an age mark limitation on yourself. There are many people who send me messages and they've literally given up in their early 40s, in their late 40s. Oh, how could you have had a business for so long? How could you? I'm 48. I've given up on that. You know, you can start a business at 70, but everybody's journey and everybody's story is different. And this is why, as Audrey said, mentorship and coaching is very, very important. We all need support.
Coaching is key.
Yeah, it's key. It's very, you have two excellent coaches here, said humbly. You know me that I toot my own horn because if I don't toot my horn, how are you going to know that I can help you? And how are you going to know God's glory in my life? So Audrey is excellent. I'm excellent. Seek support. You know, if you are at that phase where you're like, I'm 40, do I want to keep working? Or do I want to? Because those life questions come in front of all of us at some point or the other. Do I want to sell my practice? Do I want, I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to be like, okay, this practice I've had for 20 years. Do I want to sell it so I can go into coaching full-time? Do I? I may seek out that question from somebody who I know has the ability and the capability and the expertise behind them to be able to give me the question. So, the answer. So like Audrey said, it's not either or. It's just at this stage of my life, am I happy where I am? Have I given enough to the corporate world? And do I want to now transition into entrepreneurship? How do I want to do it in a wise way so that I don't, make mistakes? How do you do that? You seek support from somebody who's done that. I worked for a while. I worked for, not that long, for only 9 months out of my career. And I quit because I knew I wanted to go into business. But at that point, I sought the help of my dad because my dad and I had a very good rapport. We sat down together. We discussed the pros and cons. I sat down with him. I hired business coaches. I hired people with experience. Some of you just want to rough it out by yourselves. You can't rough out. Those are very important milestones in your life. Don't rough out a transition. Don't rough it out. A lot of you rough it out. No, honestly, a lot of, right, Audrey? They rough it out. Yeah. They just want to. It's very important. The work you're doing now is paying your bills. It's keeping your marriage steady. It's putting food on the table. So you have to make that decision in a way that you know what you're doing. You seek out people who've had at least 10 to 15 years experience. That's my advice. At least that's what I do. I don't take advice from people who've been doing something for 5 years. For me, I'm very meticulous. 10 to 15 years experience, because I don't want somebody who's still testing the waters to give me advice. I want somebody who's been there and who knows what they're talking about. But I hope all this helps. Audrey, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Give us some exit words for us to end this live. I really appreciate your time. You're a wonderful person inside and outside. May God continue to bless all of the works of your hands. May God bless your family and everything that concerns you. Thank you for your time. But please lead us out of this live with some words of wisdom.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, absolutely. What I want to leave everyone with is this. Can you learn to love yourself? Like, love yourself with your gaps and all, and determine to be yourself. Society is constantly trying to put us in some box or the other, right? We're always trying to perform for someone or the other. On this journey, you want to be your best, most authentic self with no apologies. It's literally the best place to be. So determine for yourself. So I know that on this call, there are some people who, there are things you've been wanting to do, but you are too concerned with how will people see it. What would they say? Or it hasn't been done before. As we say in Nigeria, what will it look like? Step out there. Let your what's it called? Your validation come only from God. You are phenomenal. Even if life has knocked you about a bit, the devil presses those buttons because he knows that if you begin to see yourself only as this treasured vessel, right, you will not be able to focus on the fact that you are carrying so much greatness. And you are. I've never seen anyone, millionaire, billionaire, the biggest name you know, they have still just one head. Remind yourself, I am image, I am likeness. I carry the breath of God. I carry the power of God. And if you truly trust the Spirit of God in you, please don't be afraid to shine. I know you've met some very successful people who are not nice, who are nasty, who up their noses and so on. We see those models. But why are you afraid to be successful unless you are worried you might become that? If you can trust yourself and the Spirit that is in you, please go out and shine, because the world needs us to come and help to mend brokenness. So I look forward to seeing you. Please connect with me. Happy to connect with as many of you as are out there. I've just determined to use my life, my experiences to continue to put out stuff. You know, people ask me, which one are you, oil and gas, madam, or double impact? I'm everything. And I'm going to be everything because I'm blessing as many as God brings my way. So I want to see more coming out of you. And God bless you all. Thank you for honoring me with your time and your attention as well. IYABO, thank you so much. Thank you.
Audrey, we love you. God bless you. Have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you to everybody who joined this live. Right. The replay will be on my YouTube. It probably will be on Audrey's page as well. Just come to our pages to find out where you'll see the replay. Love you, Audrey. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.